Conker is Mote's little sister. We we're just really, like a lot of people, fascinated by what's been happening with AI over the past 12 months. And just about this time last year, we started to think about building something of our own with AI. We'd seen these amazing things that people were doing with images, with photos, stable diffusion. Do you remember the first time we saw stable diffusion and the incredible things you could produce with it? And we've been aware of GPT, the platform, sort of technology behind ChatGPT for quite a while, but I think the quality had improved over time. So actually now you could use it and get pretty interesting and useful results out. And so we started to think about how we could apply that. And we'd seen with Mote being used in Google Forms, just how much time and energy goes into creating assessments for students. And we thought this was a really interesting place that AI could be applied, because it's still teacher facing. This was really important to us. We want this to be, a product, a tool for teachers. But we thought that it was somewhere where teachers actually, are spending a lot of time. It's cognitively difficult, right? Coming up with questions, especially with like multiple choice questions or complex multiple format questions, is actually really hard work. So we thought, this is an interesting problem space. And we started work on Conker back in October or November of last year. I got the team together, built the first version, released it just before Christmas, and just after ChatGPT had been released. So it was I guess good timing in some ways, because suddenly overnight the amount of interest. I mean, you must remember like the first time you got to play with ChatGPT, Alex.
I sure do. And it was a little overwhelming, but at the same time, as I kind of just experimented a little bit, it was pretty easy to kind of figure out what I was looking for it to kind of populate for me or create from a prompt that I was putting in.
Yeah, I think that was what was amazing. Suddenly this tool was super easy to use and to play with, and you could see kind of quickly how you can get like great quality product from it. Like you get really interesting output. It wasn't always 100% correct, but you can get great stuff. And I think that's what we've been learning over the past 6 or 7 months, is how to use this technology in a way that is really helpful, but also you're not like over promising. I think this is an interesting part. And I was going to show you this chart, and it's sort of like, I don't know, there's a downer, but it's this famous chart that shows what's called the hype cycle of a technology, and lots of new technologies kind of follow this. This is from a company called Gartner, where it says like suddenly something happens with this amazing new technology. Everybody gets super excited about its potential, and it gets applied in a million different ways. And then you have what's known as the peak of inflated expectation. And then what happens is that you realize actually this thing, although I can see in the future it might be useful for these things, actually right now it's not quite there. And so you have something that's called the trough of disillusionment, which is either the users getting disappointed. Sometimes the companies creating things get disappointed because the future isn't happening quickly enough. But over time, what you have is it called the slope of enlightenment, and eventually the plateau of productivity. Like so, and you see this sort of approach. If anyone remembers, like the dot-com bubble bursting, right? Or maybe even the early days of mobile or social. Like you have these sort of excitement followed by trough, followed by, okay, actually we're going to find this use. And I'm pretty sure that AI is going to follow this path. And I think, I guess out there in the audience, everybody is thinking, what am I going to do? How does AI affect me today? What do I need to do? Should I be adopting it in different ways? Is it a risk to me? Is it something that's actually going to help me? And I think a lot of people are on this journey, perhaps in different places. I'd say, for us, we've been really excited to use Conker. I'm obviously going to show a bit more about what Conker is in a minute. So let's see what happens if I click that. Bear with me a second.
So, Will, as you do that, a question that comes to mind, and I've had some good experience on Conker as well, kind of delving a little bit into some math tools that you're going to talk about a little bit later, taking a look at some of the pre-made quizzes that you can either create or you can have it based on source information. How is Conker differentiating itself from other AI tools that are so prevalent today in education?
Yeah, so Conquer, as I'm going to sort of talk through, is really just focused on in a very clear way about assessment. So there's a lot of great tools out there, people trying to do innovative things around ChatGPT technology or OpenAI, but um, we have decided to focus and go very deep on this question of assessment, and it actually resonates with quite a few of the conversations that we've had earlier today. Folks talking about feedback, folks talking about like the formative assessment loop and how do you help students learn more rapidly. So for us, that is the problem that we're trying to solve. We're trying to think, how do we make it faster to create really high quality assessments? How do we help students then get input and like the results of that more quickly? Initially, we're focused on like closed questions, but ultimately figuring out how to use AI to create high quality feedback that is in the voice of the teacher, so that as a teacher, you can feel confident to trust the AI to give that immediate feedback to students so that they, again, can accelerate their learning. And so for us, there's this like very much a sort of focus on that clear point of difference. I think the other thing is, I'd say, as a team, right, we've been thinking about building great quality tools for teachers now for nearly 4 years. And along that way, we've learned a lot about what it takes to get a tool in the hands of teachers, to get adopted by schools, to solve all the sorts of the challenges that schools will have, right? Like things like COPPA and FERPA and GDPR compliance, things like admin tools, making sure this is something that everybody in the school can use. So we've been thinking a lot about that. And partnering with schools and districts on building a tool that actually solves their problems. So for me, those are the things that really we're focusing on to differentiate. But I think there will be lots of great products out there in this AI kind of revolution. So I'm just really excited to be part of that.
Yeah, and I just feel like it's such a challenge as an educator, someone in ed tech, to really kind of figure out what are the tools that are going to provide the most bang for your buck, really going to allow students to have their voice heard, or to have their knowledge and understanding assessed in a clear cut way that's very quick. So I feel like you've done a great job, even though are we still in the beta at this point, Will?
I'd say I'm no longer using the beta excuse for when things go
Okay.
wrong, Alex. So yeah, I'd say we're properly live, and we've had this amazing uptake. We've had now about 50,000 people use Conker, and we've had about 200,000 quizzes and assessments created with the platform around the world. So that's been a fantastic way for us to sort of test out the tool to see, okay, is this solving a real problem, which we're pretty sure it is, and then try and iron out the kinks. What I wanted to show, so this is Conker.ai or www.conker.ai, and you can see create awesome assessments in a flash. That's really what we're about. I'm going to click here to launch Conker and go in. So what you'll see here is, for those who haven't seen Conker before, we've gone for a very simple approach. Like, you can start by typing any word in there and create your own assessment. But one of the things I wanted to show was we've got, just as an example of some of the things that you can do with Conker. So one is you can create quizzes based off of extracts from a novel. So this is a novel, Animal Farm, and I could use this. I could grab any other extract from any novel. I could grab an extract from a website or even a textbook that I particularly like. And one of the advantages of this is that you've got you've kind of got locked context, right? So you can ask specific questions about this. You can choose the different types of questions, and I'll show you what this looks like in a moment. So multiple choice or mixed questions. Mixed is like, we've actually really worked hard to create a set of like more engaging, higher depth of knowledge questions. So that's something which I think is definitely worth trying out. And then we have other question types I can show in a moment. And then you can also use this grade selector to actually tailor this to level of difficulty. So if you choose obviously high grades, you get different questions. We actually have support for a lot of different languages. Here I am in the UK. I'm going to use English UK. And I'm going to hit generate. You can just see how quickly this will generate questions. While that is going, I'm just going to show you, as we always say, one I prepared earlier. So if I click on this activity button here, you can see an example of a quiz that I generated a little earlier today. And this one I used as mixed type. And so if I were to present this, what you'll see is I have a couple of different types of questions. I've got this drag and drop type question. I've got what's known as a multi-select question. And then I've got multi-part questions down here, where part A is sort of asking a sort of a knowledge question, and then asking a student to identify which part of the text that use. So these are just examples of something I think for ELA teachers or social studies teachers, this is a great way to engage students. It's a great way to prepare them perhaps for some of the standardized testing that I know many states have coming up later this year. I'm going to go back here and just show you a couple other examples of things. So this is a more simple quiz. So again, really simple. It's about as simple as it gets. You choose photosynthesis as your topic question, and you'll get a selection of these multiple choice questions to go through. So what I'm showing you here, this is like in the Conker view. I could actually show you this, and we can preview here. So this shows you what it looks like. Now, inspired by what we've done with Mote, we've actually got built-in read aloud support.
Question 1. What is the main purpose of photo?
So I don't know whether you could hear that, but it's a nice crisp English UK accent here, because it's made in the UK. But obviously we support different accents around the world and different languages. So you can create versions of this for your students if they speak Arabic or Spanish as a first language and you want to accommodate that. So the next thing, do you have any questions, Alex, on anything I've shown? Or are there any questions in the chat?
Well, the thing that it's interesting that you brought it up, Will, I love the fact that there are different question types, and that's almost preparing our kids, as you mentioned, for those dreaded standardized tests that kind of instills those feelings in some of our students, where the more they use these quizzes that you're building on this platform, the more they're getting used to drag and drop and multi-select and other different types of questions like that. But for me, I saw you create a quiz based on source material. Any recommendations to people watching when you would kind of recommend just starting from scratch, letting the AI build it just on a prompt, or from source material? Where would you differentiate that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I would say that you're still going to get better quality output if you have a high quality text to start from.
And I think to myself, well, I think of like all those reading response, Fountas and Pinnell, what ELA teachers are doing. You could have them read the passage and then develop those questions right there.
That's exactly right. Yeah, like that. I mean, honestly, that was the first version of Conker that we built was solely focused on that, because we know in that case, you're dealing with. We all know some of these challenges of AI. There's this risk of hallucination, right? And one of the ways that we deal with that, I should say, is like if you're unsure of an answer, we just have a simple link here that says validate answer with Google search. That will just pop open a new browser window to give you more, an opportunity to test that. Because I would say, again, we've built this for teachers to save you time. We think this can get to 80 or 90% readiness, but you still have to do that, owning and reviewing the output. And that is true for any AI-based tool that you use, no matter what they tell you. That we're all using the same underlying technology, and the underlying technology is amazing, but it has well-known limitations. So, I'm sure you've all heard this before, but it really remains super important to own your own output, right? As you would expect, a student, hopefully over time, students will use AI themselves in their work, and they will also be responsible for the quality of their output, right? We'll expect them to validate and check the sources and check the work and ensure that they're not just relying on AI for anything.
Yeah, it's a great strategy, Will, because, as much as, again, you shared that it's kind of just ready to go as soon as you enter that prompt, we still want to make sure that we're providing checks on the material. And I love the fact that we don't have to go anywhere. You're able to just click that link underneath the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to show you one thing. Maybe I'll go back to this, whichever. There we go. Let me go back to this animal farm example. And I don't know if you know, but we actually did a really nice integration with Google Forms. So you can output this. Let me see if this will share. Okay, here I am in Google Forms. I've got my animal farm quiz. Now, what I will say is This is great if you're a Google Forms user and you've got it integrated and you're a Google Classroom school. This is a great way to go. And in fact, if you haven't seen, Eric Kurtz did a great session a couple of days ago. We released it, and he talks about using Mote with Conker together and using Mote for read aloud within the Google Forms, which is great. But I would say one of the benefits that we have within the Conker user experience is that you've got the text on the left-hand side, you've got the questions on the right-hand side, so the student can kind of see the text, see the questions. This format is actually used in quite a lot of the standardized online testing as well. So our UX is a little different, but still, this is a great way to do it. We support all these different question types. So this is a matching exercise. So it's not quite as elegant as the way we've done it within Conker, but it's still really productive. And if I were to share that and preview it, you'd see this still works really well. And then within each of these, we've added all of the feedback, so you can see the students will get the points. They've got feedback if they get the correct answer, and then we give them the correct answer if they put the wrong answer in. So a lot of that work is done. I know it can be quite an exercise, quite a lot of work to sort of prepare those quizzes otherwise. I'm going to go back to my first share screen real quick. So there's a couple more. I've got a sneak peek behind the scenes at one really something we're really excited about, which is we are introducing a new type of question. So one of the things we've learned over the past few months, in fact, I'll start here. So one of the things we've done recently is we've built out a set of ready-made quizzes. Okay, so here I have, and if you go into Explore at Conker.ai, you can find a whole set of ready-made quizzes, and all of these are aligned to standards. In this case, these are the NGSS science standards, and I'm looking at middle school, but I could look at any one of these grades, and each one of these quizzes is mapped to a NGSS standard. I can see the definition of that standard here. So if I were to choose weather conditions, for example, I get a set of questions which are aligned with that standard. And we have had a lot of teachers engage with this already. And we're trying to work with teachers, as you can see here, is to actually build in a level of collaborative validation, right? So if you're a science teacher and you want to use this materials, by all means come in. It's totally available, but we would love for you to review these questions and say, hey, this one looks good. Let's give it a thumbs up or no, and suggest an improvement if it needs it. So I just wanted to point that out. But when we were thinking about this question bank problem and we were talking to our users, one of the things we realized was we wanted to work out how to work with math, but we also realized that there were real challenges with using this technology, using generative AI with math. And if anyone's tried to use generative AI with math, you may know that there are problems. Have you tried using generative AI with math, Alex?
I have. The most that I've used generative AI for math is I really like trying to get it to connect to real world examples. Like if I'm struggling to kind of come up with something, I know kids are always going to ask me, why are we learning this? I've used it for that, but in my rare instance to try to create actual math problems, I feel like it was really lacking.
So one of the challenges, you can get quite creative output. However, the mathematical answers themselves, mathematical content is questionable, right? Because strangely, it doesn't have built-in kind of mathematical knowledge, right? It's still operating in this kind of predictive mode. So what we have done is we've combined an underlying mathematical engine to generate questions with using GPT to create stories and to visualize these questions. So I'm just going to click here. There's a whole brand new area. We focused initially on linear relationships. So this is a really important set of particularly sort of middle school and high school math. And we have generated a set of what we think are more engaging kind of question types. So you can see here generating, we've got graphical questions, we've got descriptive questions, and we've tried to localize these in a way that hopefully makes them relevant for students. And perhaps over time, we may add little little more, how can I say, variation. And I know we've seen some quite fun uses of telling stories with math around characters and so on. So I think we will build that in. But for now, one of the cool things is I'm using this here in the UK. So you're going to see examples of a farmer in Manchester planting trees or a bakery in London making bread, right? So we will personalize and localize this to wherever you are. But just to sort of, show you while this is generating all the questions. So yeah, I have my 20 questions. A nice set of questions using this exactly. So we've got a really nice set of sort of different types of questions. Now we're still iterating on this a little bit, but we're hoping to launch this very soon. So we'll be sharing this out. So if you want to be one of the first users of this, we're going to be sharing a link at the end of this session. So please, scan the QR code and you'll get early access to our math offering from Conker, because we think this is something that we just think this is going to be really transformative. Some of the things we want to do with this, we want to actually make it so that you can personalize, and every student can have their own set of questions, which are going to be totally unique. It means that every student is going to be challenged at their own pace. Also just avoids any risk that students are simply, looking at one another's answers. We hear that a lot. So yeah, we're really excited. There's a lot that can be done in this space using a combination of generative AI and some really thoughtful product design.
Well, I don't want to gloss over something that you shared with us, and that's the whole standards-based type of questions that you have built right into this platform. As a math educator, I can speak for myself, many others. If you're in a content area where you are being held to some sort of standard, some state standard or otherwise, the fact that that is built right into your tool is really effective and helpful, because you don't really have to do any guesswork as to the types of questions that are being produced. You know what it's going to be relating to. And I view myself as a teacher who is doing a daily launch and exit slip, that this would have been such a helpful tool to really just allow me to do it during my prep period in no time. And I feel like, I know you're advancing this platform so much by the day. I feel like if you could start kind of tracking those standards as a teacher and students' comprehension of those standards, and I'm sure this is probably an idea you've already come up with.
Keep talking, Alex. Keep talking. No, this is exactly right. So the sense that we get, and again, this is from conversations, but also, from we have amazing input from users, and we encourage everyone who's using Conker to keep that feedback flowing. As a school district, you're trying to track and see how are my teachers doing, how are we preparing towards these standardized tests. And as a teacher, you're looking to gather together, materials so that you can prepare your students, because you know your students better than anyone else, right? And what we are trying to do is make it so that teachers have complete control, but also they can see, yes, and I'm getting them in the direction of these standardized tests. And as a school district, you can see, yeah, this all fits together. So I think that's the holy grail that we're trying to figure out, how to make really high quality questions super accessible for teachers, and then use that and without having to do all of this complicated, it's very hard right now to actually be able to say, yes, this question maps to exactly this standard, right? And if you do it for one question, okay, can you do that for 100 questions, right? That's a hard task, and nobody wants to do that work. The cool thing is AI is really good at that. Really good at that. So that's how we are approaching this, is letting the AI focus on the tasks that it's great at, and let teachers focus on what they are great at too.
And I will share this as well, and we're almost at the end of the first block of MoteCon. I can't believe it, but I saw how it imported directly into Google Forms. And my goodness, if you start incorporating Mote audio messages, you could create some extremely dynamic formative assessments, either based on source material or otherwise, that I would be excited to share those Google Forms with my kids, and maybe even do like a branching paths types of thing where you add in sections to really make it even more comprehensive. But to have those questions import directly in, and then be able to incorporate Mote as well to make it even more accessible, I just feel like that those dynamic assessments could really add to engagement and allow teachers to better understand their students' knowledge and understanding.
I really hope they do. Yeah, I think that's, again, the reason why we built Conker was because of the insights we got from using Mote. So I think the two fit together. And I think there are other things I'd love to see us combine together using, you know, the power of voice within AI and within Conker. So if you haven't already, do check out Conker.ai. It's Mote's little sister. And I'd love to get your feedback.